the best time to seed is when the project is complete. When final grading is done or restoration is done, get in there and seed it, because you will find that trying to seed something after it's done and you know, a month or so down the line, it opens a whole can of worms, and you're probably going to be out of compliance. So what does a dormant seeding encompass? Basically, it's a fall through till spring seeding. In our region, that's late fall. For us, begins in October or mid to late October, and goes right on and through to the beginning of March. You're pushing it there if you're going into late February, especially for a dormant seeding. Seed dormancy differs than dormant seeding. Dormant seeding is just the way you seed. Seed dormancy is actually a physiological aspect of native seeds. So basically, you know, the native plant flowers, we harvest the seed, and that seed, some of it will rapidly germ, others will be dormant, and basically that dormant seed is seed that's kind of held in a state of inactivity or suspended animation, and it won't allow it, the seed dormancy won't allow it to progress even in the springtime into forming a full and mature plant. There are two types of dormancies, exogenous and endogenous. Exogenous is just the caused by it's outside of the seed embryo. So it's really, the seed coat isn't allowing the seed to continue on into a mature plant. And then there's the it's the chemicals and the hormones within the embryo that are retarding the germination of the plant itself. A majority of native seeds, I would almost say almost all of them, have some built-in dormancy. And the way you break that built-in dormancy is through a cycle. It's the typical, cycle you have through your winter time. You have those wet cycles of the fall, going into the freezing cycles of the winter, and then as you're going towards spring, you're having more of the same. And basically what that is doing is that's breaking down the seed coat, allowing moisture and more oxygen to enter into that seed, and then as it gets into the springtime and you're getting the temperatures needed for germination, it is allowing more of that seed to have a better germination rate. So like I said, dormant seeding versus seed dormancy. This is a typical seed tag. Almost every bag of seed that you should receive, if you receive any bags of seed, or if your contractors or your regulators or whoever is getting the bags of seed, every bag of seed has a seed tag on it. We follow the Federal Seed Trade Act, and what you'll notice on it, and I'm just going to really kind of pinpoint in on the germination, and you'll see on the top there for the variety of rye, the cereal rye, it has a germination of 80%. That's called quick germ. Seed tests, usually all our seed in for seed tests, and seed tests usually run 2 weeks. So we send the rye in, the seed testing company tests it, they put it in a seed box, they put a germinator. In 2 weeks, they take it out and they're going to read it. And basically, since that's rye, humans have kind of helped it along, it for uniformity, and one of the uniform traits that they breed for is uniformity. So 80% of that will germinate within 2 weeks, 3 weeks after it's put in the ground, once the correct environmental once the correct environmental, geez, I'm at a loss for words right now. Basically, when soil warms up to 55 degrees and temperature is above 60, it's going to germinate usually fully within about three weeks. You'll see there's no dormant seed there. The other circle in orange is blank. But if you go down to the spotted bee balm and you look at that, you will see kind of almost the opposite. You'll see 28% quick germ. So 28 seeds out of the 100 seeds they put up on a test will germ within 2 weeks. But the rest is what they call dormant seed. And basically what that is it's that seed that's still alive. It's held in that state of suspended animation, and it is viable. And the way they test for that is they'll take the seed that's left over from that 2-week test, they'll put it in a solution of tetrazolium liquid, allow it to sit in there for 24 hours or so, pull it out, cut those seeds open, look at them underneath the microscope, and they'll see red staining within the embryo of the seed. Tetrazolium bonds to live tissues, that are respiring, and it binds with the oxygen and forms a red color. If it's a dead seed, there'll be no red dye inside of it. It's kind of a little bit of a seed technology for you, and that's where you get the dormant seed from. They're live, but they just need that extra kick to get into germinating in the spring. Pros and cons of dormant and fall seedings. Advantages: the seed overwinters is on its normal seed cycle or natural cycle of seasons. Most of the seeds have a higher germination rate after winter stratification. So if it was up to me, and my project did finish up in the fall, or I was setting up a project to happen, I would try to go with the fall seeding, because you do get that winter strat. You will get a little bit more germination there in the spring. Sites tend to need, sites that were planted with stratified seed, especially the landscape or manicured sites, say around a campus or something that's high visibility, they tend to need less landscape maintenance, something like irrigation, because they are following that season cycle. They have been hardened off, basically, which really just means they're more to the droughty periods and the frosts, and they're more likely to something like that. Some of the disadvantages: you don't have the opportunity there to control the spring weed flush. But if you do a good job in the fall doing that, you should have some very good germination and not a lot of weed in the spring. Precautions do need, and this is for every site, whether you're in north, south, east, west, precautions need to be taken to limit erosion, especially on susceptible sites. And basically, you're going to be following whatever your ENS, your erosion sediment regulations are per your municipality, state, or whatever. And you must ensure a good seed soil contact, and I'll kind of get in on that when I go through the seeding methods. Spring or live seeding, as I like to call it, additional seeding time. It's in the spring when farmers are planting. It's when most people are planting their own gardens or their flower gardens or whatever. The advantages is you get a quicker germination, but again, you're going to have that lesser amount of seed germinating than would if you did a fall and had that winter stratification. It allows for better preceding weed maintenance. So what you can do is you can allow that site to germinate a little bit on the top before seeding it, with the soils that are there, hit it once or twice with Roundup, and then seed right into that clean upper regions. It's usually a little bit more workable in the fall. You have that better work weather schedule because you do have those days where you might get a little bit of rain, but following, you're going to have some of those windy days, and dries the soil out, and you'll be able to get right in there and plant. That's more of an opportunity for no-till planting methods, which tend to be for bigger sites. Some of the disadvantages, you have droughty conditions. Since those seeds were just planted, they haven't had time to get on their natural cycles. They tend to be a little more tender. They haven't hardened off yet. The possibility of a drought, droughty conditions may tend to affect them that way. Late killing frost tends to affect them a little harder than if it was a fall seeded planting. And then you have a slight possibility of missing the planting window. But then, you do have quite a longer period where you may get in and do your planting. Types of seeding, the methods used. And again, each site is pretty specific to its conditions, topography, and size, and that will usually dictate the method that you're going to be using to seed. A few things to keep in mind prior to seeding is determine that correct seeding method to have that equipment on your site when you need to seed. Calibrate, calibrate, calibrate. I can't say more than enough on calibrating a piece of equipment, whether you're the installer, you're the subcontractor who is installing, or you're the regulator or landscape architect who is writing the specs. Put it in there that, it needs to be calibrated, because when we do send the seed out and you get the seed bag, it's, we're going to have right on the tag there to be planted at a certain seed per acre. So calibration is very important, because once that seed is put down, especially on someone who doesn't know how to operate a machine, they put that seed down in the first 100 feet, you could put down, an acre's worth in a couple hundred square feet. You'll never be able to pull that seed off the ground and use it again. If the site has a possibility of erosion or washing, use the appropriate erosion control materials, whether it is a straw and plastic netting, a core matting, or one of the hydro mulches like Flexterra. They all do have their appropriate uses and appropriate sites and topography and project size uses. When seeding, always use a nurse crop or a cover crop, with the possible exception of native site, and I'm going to go into that a little further on here. Nurse crops, we always using a nurse crop. Spring plantings use oats. Winter and fall use rye. We can tell you the recommended rates, and you can either get your seed mixes or your straight species mixed with the cover crop, or you can have them separate and mix them on site. Again, like planting into a pre-established crop field. This is something, especially people who do restoration projects or who work on larger, like say, conservancy properties or something, state parks or things like that, where they may acquire a piece of property adjoining that was a farm field. Please pay attention to your herbicide regime that the farmer used a prior year on the crop, because some of the herbicides, especially in the class, I think it's 2 herbicides, tend to have a longer active period in the soil. Even if it doesn't damage the crops or the weeds that it's intended to, it still may damage the smaller seeded native seeding. So that's something to really pay attention to. So the first and probably the most popular seeding used in the East Coast anyways is hydro seeding. Very easy, can be used on all kinds of sites. When I started this 17 years ago, most of the hydro seeders were about that size. But today, you know, technology-wise has shrunk. You can get a hydro seeder that will fit on the backside of a UT and has a hose reel like the one in this picture. The guy up there is using the cannon, the gun, to spray it over the hill, but he could pull out the hose, and it could be used to paint basically your seating area. And it's like this year where basically they did that. They used different mixes of native mixes and straight species of both flowers and native grasses. And they had set out across the landscape colored flags, marked the bags accordingly, and basically were able, they were small enough, the hydro seeder was small enough that they were able to hydro seed small areas, a quarter acre, and then go on to the next mix and so forth and so on. So basically they really painted the area with the hydro seed and the seed mixes. One thing to remember is seed soil contact. I would recommend, and we recommend here at Ernst, that when you're planting with a hydro seed, you basically fill your tank full of water, take whatever that tank full of seed or that tank full of water will cover, figure out the amount of seed it will need, put it in the tank, have the mulch for one tank, take 1/3 of that mulch, the tank, mix it up, spray it, come back, fill the tank with water, back, get the rest of the mulch, the 2/3, and hydro seed right over the top of that. That basically gives you a very good seed soil contact, because that wet slurry water and seed and a little bit of the hydro mulch will sit very close to the seed soil layer, and the rest of the hydro mulch will be over the top. Sorry about that. Will be over the top and act as a protective cover. The next style used for dormant or spring seeding, and these are amenable to both seasons, is a no-till drill. As you can see, these are big pieces of equipment, so you're not going to them on something less than an acre, hopefully not, and you need the right equipment. These are Truax no-till drills. They take a lot of equipment to pull them through the soil, but they're very accurate. They're great on sites that are somewhat manicured, but they'll go right through that. As you can see the photo on the left there, they'll go right through that grass and plant the seed very accurately. You can plant naked seed, which has no awns. You can plant awned or fluffies, or you can plant seed mixes all at the same time. Once these things are calibrated, they're good to go, and you can do acres this way. Again, these things, you're not going to be using them when the soil is wet. And matter of fact, in that picture on the right there, or the left, that I'm looking at with the grass, that grass has actually been sprayed and will die in the following days. That's something you need to think about when you're doing things like this. Another type of seeding, cast, mechanical, or spin seeding. A farmer, the one there, the guy on the Kubota, he's a farmer. He's planting a crep field. That was a soybean field. He moved it to crep. He's just out there seeding with his broadcast seeder. He's going to come in there and roll that thing down, probably with a Brilliant roller or a large roller of some type to get a little bit of bezel contact. But as you can see, the one on the left there, that's a GPS guide, ATV with a small spin spreader. You're not going to go in there and have that be able to do that. So you're hoping that the rain and the snow in the fall or in the spring is kind of going to give you a better seed soil contact there. When you are spreading with any kind of broadcast, whether it's mechanical or hand, or what I call hand seeding or small plot seeding, you will need some kind of carrier, because seed tends to not be carried up that far if you don't use something like that. So basically, I prefer using the damp sand method. Take the appropriate amount of seed that will be covered for a full load. You mix it with damp sand, and when I mean damp sand, just moistened, no water dripping out of it. You mix the seed in, you put it into your spreader, and you spread it. Some people use kitty litter or cat litter. I have found it tends to separate out in the column, the spreader, just basically because it is vibrating so much as you go across the field. You'll have some of that, and then it does not like attach itself like damp grains of sand will attach to the seed. And basically you're just going to be broadcasting out a bunch of dried cat litter. The next is hand seeding, and it's basically the same thing that is mechanical, but in a smaller neck mounted thing. You have a spin seeder there. Same thing here. Here's a Truax. This one, the Truax will actually do seeds where the earthways, I don't think it has what's a fluffier mechanical thing to push the fluffy seeds down into it. That's where your cover crop, I mean, not your cover crop, but your damp sand is going to go a long way to allow that material to be out. Or you could do it the same way with the push style seeder. These are for small. You're pretty accurate with these things. Again, you're going to want to calibrate all this equipment. One thing you want to do also, when I find I'm seeding something with a hand seeder, carry a stick with me and tap the side of the container, just so that it gets some of that damp sand off the sides and down into the spreading mechanism. So now I'm going to go into frost seeding. This is different than a dormant fall seeding, like up until about the time the snow flies or the ground freezes solid, to where the ground is thawing out and moving in more of a spring kind of thing. And these methods used, the best to achieve this are mechanical broadcasting or hand broadcasting. So this would be something that would probably be going into late November, December, January, into February. Some of the advantages, it does allow some of the cold stratification depending on when you put it down. It allows for seeding if you missed a fall seeding window. That is only if it is applicable to your site. It's not for every site. If you miss it on a highly erodible site, I would try to get in there somehow and seed it. I would not try to try to winter seed something like that. On an established native planting site, you may not need the cover crop, and I'll be going into that in just a little bit. Some of the disadvantages, you really need to have the proper site prep already completed. So basically, you're going into what I would consider a blank slate. Everything's ready to go, and whether that is a partially tilled field or just a native stand that's been scalped down, or a farm field that the crop has been taken off of. It is definitely not applicable to every site. So That's just something to think about when you're doing this. And you really need to pay close attention to the weather. I would prefer that you do it on a day where the soil in the morning is frozen, but you know by noon it's going to be into the high 30s, low 40s, and in the evenings it's going to go back down into the below freezing or freezing stage. So this is an established site. This is in Southwest Pennsylvania. It was Minelands bought by a conservancy. The conservancy, and it was seeded by the Minelands. It was reclaimed, seeded by the Minelands using a native seed mix. Over the 20-year period, it has gone from a diverse native mix to more of almost a complete warm season mix. The conservancy bought the property. They had to remediate the wash down the center, which they didn't fall. And then they're going to come through and they're going to winter dormant seed over this thing to add some forbs so that they're going to have a better habitat, pollinator-wise, biodiversity-wise, and for birds and so forth and so on. A couple of things you need to really make sure that you do is ensure you have good weed control the prior growing season or 2 prior growing seasons of this. You know, if you have something like thistle or reed canary grass, you better mitigate it out of this site before you try to do an overseeding. Because once you mix the full it's really going to get tough to kind of separate that out because there aren't very many herbicides that are going to do that well. Second thing you really need to do is either burn that thing down literally, you know, light it on fire if you're allowed to do it in your municipality, or scalp mow and remove the chaff and dead material. And here's the site. They came in, scalp mowed it. They had a farmer mow it for them. They baled it off. They actually sold the straw. And what you end up with is on the right-hand side is kind of almost bare earth with a little bit of chaff in there. You can see some of the winter annual weeds there. 10 to 1, they may be native, but they shouldn't really interfere with a good seeding and a good germination coming in the spring. And then they went ahead and they seeded this. And they basically, I'm pretty sure they used a tractor mounted spin spreader, came in, they did it on the day where there was, the ground's frozen. You can see there's still a little bit of snow there, but it was in that freeze thaw cycle. They planted it and it actually did pretty well. So when I say frost heave, this is kind of what I'm looking at. In the morning, it's going to be frozen solid. In the afternoon, that cycle where it's thawing out, that seed is going to bind with the wet soil. And then you're going to get, as it freezes that evening and into the night, that seed is going to go on like that. The soil is going to heave a little bit, and then same thing's going to happen. It's going to kind of come back down during the afternoon hours, and you're going to get a pretty good seed soil contact across that whole site, even depending on the snow that's on that site, because it's in the process of melting out. A couple of things, what not to do when you're doing snow or frost seeding. Definitely that snow scene there, you do not seed onto something that I would say has 18 inches, 12 to 18 inches of snow. At most, I'm looking at seeding on something where I could see a little bit of bare ground, or 2 inches, possibly at max. If you were to seed into that snowscape, you will have every bird and small mammal coming and predating on that seed. If there's a quick thaw and a rain accompanying that, 10 to 1, most of that seed will wash right off the site. The other picture there on the right is gentleman seeding into something that has not even been maintained, 10 to 1, nothing will grow there. You're not going to get good seed soil contact, even though you're having this freeze, frost, thaw cycle. And the compost from there, I don't even know how that seed's going to get to the soil. And you will never, ever, and I can't stress this enough, get a native seed to grow in a site with cool season grasses, like the center picture. There's just, you need to kill cool season grasses off because they compete time of germination, and they're actively growing at that time, and they will always outcompete a native. So if your site does have cool season grasses on it, please mitigate it, kill it prior to your seeding. So snow seeding, as you can see the picture on the right, seeds on the top of the soil or on top of the snow. Like I said, I would prefer about 2 inches of snow at most. 3, yeah, that's okay. You know that it's either going to be covered a little bit or it's going to thaw with a pretty quick period of time. The center picture there, that's an Dormancy property. That's here in Crawford County. It's an old, where we're located, that's an old farm. They purchased or were given the property. They harvested the soybeans. Basically, they were Roundup ready soybeans, so the ground is ready to go. And it was frost and snow seeded. As you can see, there's probably about a ½ inch to an inch of snow across that entire site, and it was a great seeding actually. And again, there's a picture of kind of like the soil. What I really would like to see if you are going to do a true frost and a true snow seeding. So the results you want at the left, you can see the native seeding coming up through the crop stubble there. That is what you want to see in the spring. Hopefully you're coming into March, you're going to be wanting to seeing something like that, and the final results are going to be something like this. This was actually in Pennsylvania here at a state park. It's the old iron bridge outside of Warren that was made into a state park recently. So any questions? You've got a couple of nuggets of information that you can use. What I would like to say, if you have any questions, please feel free to call me. Call in to Ernst, ask for me. I'd be glad to help you through. Feel free to email me. I have 17 years of experience doing this. I could pretty much get you through any problem or set you in the right path that you need. So thank you.
All right, Greg, we do have a couple questions that have come through the chat here, so I'm just going to read those to you, and maybe you can field those real quick before we go.
All right.
One said, if a site is complete in the summer, would you still seed it then?
So it really depends on the site. It really depends on what your regulators say, because some sites, they're year-round, big projects, roadways, big facilities. They'll be seeding all year round. Yes, I would seed it if I have to seed it. If you can't, you could put a cover crop on it, and then do some of that in the fall. Mow it off, spray down, mow it off, pull the chaff off it if not too much, and then seed into it, no-till or hydroseed or something like that. Yeah. So it really depends on your site, and it really depends on your regulator or the regulations that you got to follow.
All right. Another question here is methods to prevent geese and other birds from eating the seed before it germinates.
Well, you will always have predation. You will always have a certain amount of predation by birds and or small mammals. Plus, you're going to have some, seed just die off bacterial wise, so forth and so on. A lot of the seed isn't predated that way. Where it happens is when it starts germinating and you're getting geese coming in there. There's a couple of different methods I've seen where they've actually put grids of wire down, and basically the geese can't land into it, so they stay out of it. And if they can't walk into it, they'll stay out of it. That way, I have also seen where they have on sites hired sorry about that. They've hired a dog. There's a lot of golf courses do this a lot now. They will hire these trained dogs. They send them out after the geese, scare the geese off, and after about a week or 2 weeks, basically they're gone. So those are really the methods. If the seed is covered by an erosion control blanket or hydro seed, 10 to 1, you're not going to have a picking or predating on the seed, but you can tend to have geese in there. And, they are a scourge. I've seen them clean a site off. So if it's up to the owner or the partners in the project, just figure something out prior to seeding.
Okay. Another question we have is, excuse me, can you use no-till equipment on steep slopes?
Yes, you can. If you have an operator or a company who knows how to do it. Because tractor slopes can be very dangerous. They need to know what's going on because the risk of flipping it over is high, and someone getting killed, it's not worth it. And specialty planters, yes, they can do it. I would prefer to see something like a hydro seed on a steep slope like that. It really depends on how steep the slope is too. A good tractor driver can seed a steep slope, but have some prior experience with it, or it's not going to end well.
Yeah, definitely a potentially dangerous situation there. Just 2 more questions real quick for you, Greg. This one is, what's your recommended rates for cover crops?
Or off the top of my head, I can't, and don't take this 100% because I think it's about 30 pounds an acre, 20 to 30 pounds an acre, somewhere in there. I think for both of them. I'm not sure. Like I said, sales would know that a little bit better. It's always been somewhere in that range.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I mean, a lot of questions are our sales customer service team. They're a savvy bunch of folks, so they'll be able to answer a lot of questions for you. And we really recommend that you do call us and ask questions. That's what they're there for. They'd like to have that conversation and make sure that you know everything you need to going into that planting project. So yeah, definitely call our sales team. Okay, well, the last question we have here, Greg, is Christian is asking, what is the spring quote unquote kick? And he's asking if you were referring to just more time. I think you were talking about the fact that sometimes that little extra kick is necessary. So he's kind of wondering what you mean.
Yeah, I think if I remember the springtime kick, I'm saying if you dormant seed, and I'm hoping this is what he's referring to, is if you dormant seed, and if you looked at that tag that I showed, it said the germination rate on the spotted bee moth was 28%. That's quick germ. You get the extra kick of germination when things are fall planted, because like I said, it breaks down the dormancies, you know, whether it's physical dormancy or it's chemical dormancy. So you're getting, instead of 28%, you're getting a little boost of maybe up to maybe 35%, 40, 50%, or something like that. I hope that's kind of what he was referring to.
Okay. We have one last question come in here as we're wrapping up. Do the typical seed mixes contain some cover crops?
No. Native seed mixes don't contain the cover crops, only unless you ask for them to be mixed with cover crops. So they're usually not sold with cover crops unless it's changed, and I don't think it has, because you can get your mix and you can mix on site. You know, you can get the cover crop from us and the native seed mix on site, or we can mix cover crop the appropriate rate into whatever amount of seed that you are purchasing.
Great. All right, Greg. Well, thank you very much. I think that wraps it up. I want to thank everybody for joining us again today. Glad we were able to field some questions for you. By all means, follow up with us offline too. If you do have questions, you can reach out to us, to either Greg specifically, greg@ernstseed.com, or myself, rferguson@ernstseed.com, and we'll answer questions for you. Another thing we will plan on doing is sending out a recording of this webinar to everybody, probably early next week at this point. So if you had to jump off here, we did run a little long today, we'll have that recording for you. So thanks once again for everybody joining us. Thank you, Greg, for another great presentation. And we'll be announcing our next topic here within the next couple of weeks. And we'll all get together again in January for the third installment in this High Noon Education series. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.